Good morning, folks. I'm going to continue where we left off in the last video, finishing up Chapter 7 and moving on to Chapter 8. So the last thing we were talking about was print CSS. The last thing in Chapter 7 to talk about is mobile web design. All right. So back in Chapter 5, we talked about, what are the most important principles to think about in design. And for web design, we are designing basically a tool for other people to use. And so considering your audience is one of the most important parts of designing for the web. It's where you should start. And designing a website for different screen resolutions or different devices is something you have to consider. So most people nowadays browse the internet on their smartphone or tablet, and it has much different screen size, and it is in a different orientation. So the things that we learned so far are all about designing for a landscape screen. So where a width is larger than the height. All right. So it's like a rectangle on its side. And you guys know how, with a smartphone, you generally hold it in a portrait orientation. Kind of like a piece of paper when you read a piece of paper. So the things that we did for a landscape orientation don't always translate well into a portrait orientation. Plus there are other limitations. So let's take a look. And most of these are going to be common sense, but some of them may surprise you. Probably not, though. So for a smartphone, this is specifically talking about smartphones, so it's called mobile design. We have to deal with a smaller screen size, low bandwidth, so we can't guarantee that people browsing on their phone will always have a good connection, so we have to take that into account. They may have limited fonts or limited color, depending on what phone they use and what browser they use on that phone. It says awkward controls, probably when they created this material. The person who made these decisions considered using a smartphone as awkward. Nowadays people are pretty fluent in controlling a smartphone, but it's different than a computer, right? You use your finger. And it's mentioning limited processor and memory, and so what they're saying is a smartphone is not going to be as fast as a computer. I'm sure there are phones that are faster than certain computers, but we have to operate basically dealing with bottlenecks, and when you're designing for mobile, you should consider what the average user is going to have, and even consider what the lowest speed phone is going to be and the smallest, so that way your website will work on the most devices. All right. And also, with a mobile phone, with a phone plan, a lot of phone plans you pay for the data that you use. If you pay for internet at home, they do usually have in the fine print a limit of how much data you can use, but unless you are downloading a ton of movies or a ton of games, you won't reach that cap just by streaming or anything like that. So if your website has a lot of large files, you may have to consider this cost per kilobyte. Okay, so how do we fix these things? It's this simple. So we recently looked at creating multi-column sites. In the last chapter we looked at a 2-column site. In this chapter they show you how to do a 3-column site. It's not that much different. But on mobile design you want to use a single column, because a phone is much taller than it is wide. Presenting information in multiple columns with a small viewing screen, small viewing area, is going to make it a lot harder to read. So why not just make it 1 column? Okay, it says avoid floats, tables, and frames on mobile design because it's hard to control the layout of floats, tables, and frames, or it's just a lot of work. All right. It says use a descriptive page title. So do you remember what the title element is? That determines what the information on the tab is going to be in, like, Chrome. Okay. You want to use a descriptive page title so people can browse more easily on their phone if they're switching tabs or switching apps. They can see, what they're looking at. It says optimize images. We talked about in chapter 4 how you can, in the browser, you can adjust the size of an image, but that only changes how it displays. It doesn't change the file size. So you actually have to lower the resolution to decrease the file size. And then, use descriptive alt text for images. That's just good design for any web page. Eliminate unneeded images. If it's not important, if it's not an important image, you don't want to show it on mobile, but it's fine to show images on a computer because they're most likely using data from an ISP that isn't as limited or expensive. Okay. Your navigation should be vertical. Everything should be presented vertically in a single column, just as a base rule. All right. They say for your font size you should use EM or percentage, which are very similar. They will adjust to fit the size of the screen. So, there are a lot of different phone screen sizes and resolutions. So this way we don't have to manually program the font size for each device. And we don't have to keep changing it when new devices come out. All right. Good contrast, so you want to make it easy to see everything because you have a smaller screen. And then in this chapter we talked about the fragment identifiers for moving to different spots in the page using an ID. Well, when you're browsing on a computer and you have a keyboard, there are a ton of shortcuts to move around on a page. People probably don't even use these anymore, but the home key will bring you to the top of the page. The end key will bring you to the bottom. You can see the information a page at a time, or a screen at a time if you use the page up and page down keys. Well, when you're using a phone, you only have your finger, so it's a good idea to provide some ways to navigate through the page with hyperlinks. So if someone needs to read the whole page, and then they need to go back up to go to the menu, you could provide a link to return to top for them. All right, and then if it's a really long page, you might want to include a table of contents so they can get to what they need quickly and they don't have to scroll. All right. All right, this here Viewport Meta tag, it allows you to set a baseline for a zoom level on a web page. So when you load the page, if the user had zoomed in on a page, on a previous page, and they're visiting your site, you want to reset the zoom back to normal. And so that way they don't see your page zoomed in and they don't know what they're looking at. All right. That's what this does. So if you include this, it is the meta element. So we're going to be putting this in the head section of the web page up at the top, because it's not something that shows up in the page. And you don't have to memorize this. You can just copy and paste it or look it up. It's a common thing that you use for mobile web design. Okay, so on the this is the Mozilla website. They have an example here. Let's see how it compares to what they have in the slides, because sometimes things change and they can get out of date. So don't take the stuff from the book as always correct. Using a textbook or anything physical regarding technology is a bad idea, because it can change so quickly. So you need to learn how to keep up with changes in technology by looking it up on the internet and making sure the information you're finding is up to date. Okay, so we're going to do some stuff in here. I want to give you the link in the chat. So if you want to check it out, you can. All right, so here we have a default viewport meta tag. So let's put in the one from this website, which the Mozilla website is probably going to be up to date here. Okay, so there's that. I'm going to make it more visible here so we can see it. Should be on one line. Okay. Let's see if it's the same as the one on the slides here. All right, so they're using 1.0 instead of 1. That might be important for some browsers. So if it doesn't work as 1, try it as 1.0. But let's try the one from the Mozilla site for now. All right, so now we need some content to mess around with. Here we go. These are going to be too basic. Here we go. And we just care about the body here. This is way too old. They're using background color attribute. There we go. We'll look up HTML template. Alright, so here I found a site, sample web page. It's just a very basic HTML page. It has an image, it has links, paragraphs, headings, all that. So I went to view source. So let me walk you through how you might do this. Here's the web page. Okay, I can hit Control U to see the code. Alright, and I want the body, only the stuff inside the body. So we're going to snatch this body. Okay. Everything between the opening and closing body tag. And I'm just going to throw it in the body here for an example. So I'll paste that in. And then I'll just have it format the document for me. Okay, so now the code should be formatted in a readable way. And I'm going to open this in a new tab over here on the right. Okay. The image, we don't have an image there, so let's see what it says. It is picture of something.jpg. I'm just going to call it picture.jpg, and we'll upload a picture for that. So under files, I can go to just 3 dots in the top right of this files area, upload file, go to pictures, and we'll put this crazy hacker guy. Oops. Don't forget to rename the picture to match the src attribute. So I called it picture.jpg, so I better call this one picture.jpg. That way it'll show up. Okay, way too big, so I'm going to adjust the size here. We'll go 30%. Alright, so the picture is taking up, its width is taking up 30% of the screen, no matter how I zoom in. Notice how it's still taking up a third. Okay. Anyway, here's our kind of basic site, and we have that viewport tag that's setting the scale to 0. And inside of Chrome, I'm going to open the console tools by hitting F12 on the keyboard. And up next to the inspector that we've been using, this little button here where we can select elements, right next to that is this little toggle that you can switch your page to a mobile layout. So this kind of simulates or emulates the resolution of a smartphone. So we can see, since this is just HTML with no CSS, it's already a it's left aligned single column page. But it looks terrible, and it's hard to read because the text is too small. But we don't want to make the text bigger because then it'll be too big when we try to read it on a computer. So what can we do? this is where the last slide comes in. We can use something called a media query. And so the word query means question. It's a request for information. And then media, this refers to the medium that you're using to view the web page. So translated, this means asking for how they are viewing the page. So we can ask the device or the browser that is loading the page to tell us what the resolution of the screen is, and then we can adjust the CSS accordingly. So here they're showing a way to specify a mobile style sheet. So remember, we looked at how to use an external style sheet in chapter 3 by using a link element, okay? And then earlier in this chapter we looked at how you could use another link element to designate CSS used for printing. You can also do the same thing to designate a style sheet for a mobile layout. And then the browser, when someone loads the page, the browser will use the style sheet that matches what you've set up. So if it's, in this case, they're setting the media to use a media query. So it says, for this page, if the screen has a max device width of 480 pixels or less, use this style sheet. And so it'll use that style sheet instead of the normal one. Well, if we do it this way, it'll just use this one on top of the normal one. So we don't have to recreate every rule. We don't have to design two different style sheets for the different sites completely from scratch. We could just make adjustments in this style sheet, and those will apply when the screen is less than 480 pixels wide. Okay, and so we can. How do you know what to set it to? Well, you can actually use multiple different resolutions and create as many different sets of rules for different sizes of screens as you want, or if you don't want to micromanage it like that, you can just look up average mobile screen width. Okay, so right now it says most mobile phones have a device width of 400 pixels or lower. Okay. So that's why they're using 480. If that number changes, you'll have to look it up, and it'll be as easy as just changing the number in your code. All right, so let's use that. I'm going to copy this so we can use the code. We'll have to adjust it though. All right, so here we're setting our title, mobile design example. All right, because remember, you want to use a descriptive title. You should always have a descriptive title for your page. Because looking at this, I know this is a replit. I'm in a replit tab here, and I have a replit tab here. This one has the title, it has the name of the project in the tab. So if I have multiple replit tabs open, I can identify which one is which. Now unfortunately, Actually, not unfortunately. This one just says Replit. Well, that's because the title was Replit before, but now I opened it, or I changed it to Mobile Design Example, so now I can more easily tell that apart if I'm working on multiple things. Okay, and then we don't need the sample web page anymore, and we don't need the search anymore. I'm trying to work on my browser tab hygiene. I have a habit of leaving things where they are when I'm done using them, which creates a giant mess. Okay. So we're going to put that link right after the normal style sheet link. So that says we'll apply these rules from this sheet first, and then we will apply these rules second. And any of the rules in the second one that conflict with the rules in the first one, they'll just overwrite them. So now we need to create the actual style sheets. We have style already. We need to add a, we'll just call it mobile.css. All right. So I need to create a file called mobile.css. All right, so in our normal style, just to demonstrate, let's set body, body, background, color. We use a light gray. So we'll use DD. That's going to be a light gray. So now if we look at the page, we have a light gray color. And then in our mobile design, CSS, let's add a body rule. We'll set the color to a really light blue. So let's see if I can guess the color for that. That'll be fun, right? Background dash color. And so I want this to be light, so I want all the numbers to be high, except the color I want to be low, because it's going to be darker the lower it is. So we'll use D, 5D. So that's probably too much of the other colors. Let's try E. See what that comes out to. Nope, still purple. So let's see what a light blue would, kind of a light blue would be. All right, so it looks like, oh well, I was using the wrong, I was using green anyway here. So it looks like a mixture of about half red, a little more than half of red, 4/5 of blue, and almost all green creates this kind of light color. So anyway, we got what we wanted. So the page is still gray over here. Let's see if we can get it to work. So here we have the page, it's gray, and so the media query should set it to blue when the page is on a screen that's smaller than 480 pixels or smaller. So this example, I'm using a Pixel 2. You can click up here and choose what phone you want to look at. So let's look at a Galaxy Fold. We can look at an iPad Pro. So an iPad Pro is 1,000 pixels wide. So it's gray because that's more than 480. Let's go to the Galaxy S5. That's 360. And so I can't read this. It's too small. I would have to zoom in to read it. You don't want to have to make people zoom in to read the content on your page. So I'm going to try something here. Let's make a rule that everything will be, we don't have anything nested right now, I think. The lists are nested, but anyway, you can use the asterisk. That'll select every element on the page, and let's set the width to 80%. See what that does. Probably will break everything, but okay. So on the normal page, we have this, and then here, it does not seem to be taking up 80% of the page. Interesting. Oh, because we're also setting the body to 80% by doing this. So we would have to set a rule after this to set the body to 100% to overwrite what that rule did. And doesn't seem to be working still. So let me see if it is nested in something. Nope. All right. Well, that's what I get for trying to take a shortcut. So we want the information on the page to take up as much. We don't want a bunch of dead space like this on the right. And so I wonder if it's actually just zoomed in too far. No, because here's my zoom. Is there something else that's pushing it over? Oh, it's this pre-formatted text. So it's generally a bad idea to include pre-formatted text in a page because you can't control the size of it. So that's the pre element here. Just get rid of that. So let's get rid of this whole thing here. And here's another pre-tag. And for whatever reason, it looks like they forgot to put closing programming, or I'm sorry, the closing paragraph tags. So I'm wondering what is going on here. How is it structured? It looks like Chrome is automatically detecting where the paragraph should end. And we don't want to have to go in and fix all that. Wow, there's a lot of pre-formatted text in here. Oh, I guess not. Let's look for, there's one. Get rid of that. Get rid of this one. And so I'm just going to go in and find every instance of the opening pre-tag. So I'm going to select the opening pre-tag and hit Control F2. That selects all of them on the page. And I'll just hit backspace. I deleted all of them. And I can select the closing pre-tag, highlight it, hit Control F2, and hit backspace. Now they're all gone. So we can save some time there. There we go. Now the largest part is taking up 80%, and everything else, I guess, is adjusting to that. So what is this? All right. So now it's a lot easier to read, but it's not it's still not readable enough. Okay, so let's go to our principles of design for mobile web pages. It's already a single column, so check, we got that. Avoid floats, tables, and frames. Okay. We don't have any floats, we don't have any frames, but I don't know if we have a table. So let's look up table. We do have a table. So let's get rid of that. Looks like we have one table. This is a table. Oh, never mind. Okay, so we got to get rid of, they're using a border attribute on these tables, so I have to look up for table border. Okay, so I can select that. Hit Control F2 and delete all of those. Okay, and we'll see if there's any more tables. Nope. Okay, cool. Alright, so we got rid of tables, which means you should display the information. If you have a table, because you want to display information in a table, you'll have to create a different structure for that. That'll make it more easily adjustable. So you can use divs. I think if you nest a table inside of a div, that might work. But the thing is, if you have an adjustable size table, it's hard to make it look readable. So it's easier to just avoid them if you can. Okay, we changed the title. It came with descriptive heading tags, so that's fine. Optimize images. Okay. So we have one image, and it is, let me pull it up in my files so we can see how big it is. It is 53 kilobytes, so I can go in, change it, and let's just set it to, we made it 30% of the page, so let's just make it 30% of its original size, and then we can save that, and then we have to re-upload it, because I only changed it on my computer. Now I have to get it onto the web server, so I'm going to upload file, find it in here, there it is. Now upload it, and I need to rename it to picture.jpg, but I'm going to delete the old one first so I don't get confused about which one's which. Picture.jpg, alright. And now it is only causing them to have to download. Oh, I have to refresh this. There we go. 13 kilobytes. So, you know, it's about 4 times smaller, which is nice to have. Okay. What's next? Providing descriptive alt text for images. Okay. So, what do we have for alt text on our image? Brief description. We'll put dude hacking the internet with VR. Alright. It's not going to change anything on the page here. So if I go refresh it, you see there's no difference here. I mean, in the code we can see now it has this. Alright, so I downloaded some screen reading software.
Saturday.
And just to demonstrate to you how you could use this to browse the internet.
Live streaming YouTube
Now you have to imagine if you can't see anything, how you would use this. But I set the alt text. Remember, I set the alt text on this picture to a description, and so now if I move my cursor over the image,
dude hacking the internet with VR title equals text to show when mouse.
Whoops, let me refresh it here.
Mobile design example. Heading level 2 sample web page. Graph dude hacking the internet with VR.
So you can see
dude hacking the internet with VR.
As you're going down the page.
A random photo. Frank de Cruz. Saturday, January 7th. Updated May 26th, 2009. Contents. Contents. Creating a web page. HTML syntax. Special characters.
Maybe you can't hear it, so let me turn it up just a little bit, and then we'll try it.
Document. Elements panel. Updated May 26th, 2019 for HTML5. Mobile design. Dude hacking the internet with VR. A random photo. Frank de Cruz.
Okay, so I think you get the idea. This is why it's important to put alt text on your images. Now in this picture is serving no purpose on this site, so it's kind of a poor example, but if it was an important photo, I could put information in the alt text, and then people using a screen reader can know what's there. Okay, so what's next? Eliminate unneeded images. Okay, so what you could do in your mobile.css is create a rule and do image. How do we hide images? Display none. So now the image shows up on the normal web page. Like so. But as soon as I view it on a mobile device, the picture is gone and we don't have to download that. So there's that. Put your navigation in a list. We looked at how to create vertical navigation in this chapter, so that's easy. You can look back at that. Use EM or percentage font size units. Okay, so you want larger text, not only for your links, because they're easier to click, but you also want it to be readable, right? So for mobile, let's set the body. So this is all the text in the body. Font size to, let's try 2 EM. So that makes everything twice as big. Okay, so the normal site has the same font size, but when I switch to mobile, I might have to get rid of this width. It'd probably be a good idea also to get rid of, well, did I use the wrong property here? Well, let's try 200%. Or maybe I'm just not noticing it. Well, I guess it is easier to read. So let's try 200%. Okay, that's the same as 2EM. I don't know why I tried that. Let's try 3EM for mobile. Let's see if we can make it look different. Looks like it does it. It's not working. Let's try 10 EM. Okay, that worked. That's way too big though. Let's try 5. That's 500% of the normal size is 5 EM. Okay. All right, now it's a little bit easier to read, right? Except for I'm not sure why these are still shrinking down. Let's get rid of this. Yeah. I wonder if it is what is doing that. Anyway, I'll figure it out later and fix it in the example. Because we're running out of time. All right. You know how to change the fonts. You can look up what the fonts are available in most browsers by just Googling it. Good contrast between text and background colors. So the color I'm using here, it's still kind of dark with black text. It's readable, but look, hyperlinks are blue and it's on a blue background, so I might want to change the hyperlinks or maybe get a different background. You want as high of contrast as possible to make if you want it to be the most readable. Okay, and provide a back to top link. We know how to do that already. We just did that in this chapter, so let's go to the bottom. And at the bottom, and you could put these at the end of each section even, so that if they get what they need, they can go back to the top whenever they want. So let's put right below this horizontal line, we'll put an anchor tag. And do you remember how to create a fragment identifier and a link to it? You just put the name of the ID to the top. And then there's the link text. All right, and then when we look at it here, we go to the bottom. Maybe. And then we can click to top, bring us back to the top. And it would be as simple as just putting these at the end of each section. So we can just find a header, put the link right above it, maybe right above the HR, and then find the next one. So they're using H3s. As their headings here, so we can go to each one. Let's look for the opening tags. Oh, and I guess this is weird to say at the end of the video. Control F, it allows you to search in a lot of things in Windows. Web pages, here in Replit they have their own just to search the Replit text editor here. So I'm hitting, I have to be in the text editor. I can hit Control F to bring up the window, type what I want to find. Well, if I want to find the opening H3 tags, I want to have an opening angle bracket, and then I'm going to put H3, and I'm not going to put the closing angle bracket because these have attributes, so it's not going to look like that. So anyway, we can go up. Here's the one before that, so I'll put a link there. Here's number 9, I'll put a link there. Here's number 8. Anyway, I'm not going to do all of them. Let's go up a bit to 3, put one there. All right, and now we can see the page. So let's go down to section, the bottom section. So right here we have a top link. Here we have one, so you can get back to the top of the page quickly. In a long page like this, it's really annoying to have to scroll up to the top with your finger, right? And you look like a crazy person swiping your screen up or down like that. So one thing, see if I can get this in the last few minutes here. Let's do right. So we can actually create a CSS rule to hide these two top links. Let's say we don't want them in the, we only want them on mobile. So in the normal style sheet, we can make a rule to select only anchor tags with an href attribute of #top, right? And then we will set that to, how do we hide it? Remember, display none. Right? And let's see if that actually works. So on the normal version of the site, okay, I see them here because I haven't refreshed. If I refresh, now they're all gone. But if I switch to mobile, oh, I have to unhide them. So I have to set the display to back to inline here. I have to, because the first rule is going to hide them, that runs in the style.css. Then the mobile CSS runs if it's a smaller screen. So I need to set the value back to inline, because anchor tags are inline by default. And now they should be there. I don't know why this screwed up so bad. Really gotta fix that. I'm definitely gonna forget. So if in the next video, if you're here, remind me to fix this, and we'll do that next time. All right, so the two top links do appear now in mobile. So there's the two top there. But if I switch back to this view, those two top links are gone. So you can, basically, you're designing a way to translate your normal website into a mobile site by following these principles. Okay? And remember, you set that up using a media query here. All right? So that's the end of chapter 7. I can talk about each thing in all of these chapters for an hour. So I guess we didn't make it to chapter 8. I think next week I'll do another 2 live streams just so we can get through the material before the end of the class. All right. Thank you very much, and you have a good day, and I'll see you next week. Have a good Thanksgiving. Be safe.